Hello everyone, I made a new video to show you how to graph the data we got during the last lab class. So here you can see I made some mock data to just show you. So during the last lab class we just worked with glucose, so we had like time and glucose, and you were asked to plot a graph, a scatter plot with the class data we got, and some of you had trouble putting a trend line only on the linear part of the data. So in order to help you guys, I decided to make this video. So here I'm using mock data, and I'm using like 3 different sugars. I decided to do this because in next lab class you are going to work with 3 different sugars, and you are going to get data, right? So I thought it's better if I just make up some data and just show you how to do it. So this is your data. Go ahead and select everything and go to insert, go to scatter plot. So that's how it's going to look. So if you remember, you received directions in the last lab class to just insert a trend line on the linear portion of your data. So I wouldn't say that it's highly impossible to get a perfect, perfectly linear, a straight line data, like even when you do your own experiments. Although this is mock data and also it's kind of not so straight, but like even in reality, when you perform an experiment, it's possible that some of the data points are might not follow a trend, like there's no constant rate, the rate is kind of changing. So in this case we are going to select the data points which are almost kind of falling on the line. So right now I'm looking at sucrose, which is in orange, right? So I guess like all these points are kind of falling on a straight line. So let me count this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the last 8 data points of sucrose are kind of linear. So I wanna put a trend line on only that part, because if you remember when we discussed about fermentation and cellular respiration, and like I have made it clear in the lab that this portion of the data shows you the cellular respiration, like cellular respiration turning into fermentation. So you don't expect every yeast cell in the yeast mixture to start fermentation at the same time point, right? So that's why you kind of see kind of a curve. So you do not want to use that data. So we are going to use this linear data. So click on these data points to just select the sucrose. As soon as you do that, the program highlights the information you just clicked on. So you have to right click that and select the option which says select data. And then you're going to add a series and name it as sucrose linear. I'm naming it as sucrose linear because I'm just gonna plot the linear part of the data, and we counted how many data points we want to include, and we counted them as 8. So name the series as sucrose linear and select the range. For x values, let's count 8 from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Do that. And select the y values. Oops. Wait, I mixed up the x and y values, so I have to that's the x values. Those are the y values. Okay, there you go. Okay, so if you see, the color of these last 8 data points has changed because that's what we selected, right? And now you can go ahead and select the data. If you observe, it's not selecting the entire sucrose data, because you have kind of selected the data points you want to replot again over the same plot. And now you have an option to just select the linear part of the data and add trend line. If you have a Mac, you just have to right click, I guess, and go to trend line options and display equation on the chart. That's it. So that's how you can plot you can include a trend line on the linear portion of your data. So you're going to do the same thing with the other, sugars. So in the last lab class, we just worked with glucose. So I asked you to plot only these two and put a trend line on the linear part of the data. But in the coming lab, like next lab, you're going to work with 3 different sugars, because the team which won the presentation chose to work with 3 different sugars. I'm not sure if it's glucose, sucrose, agave for both the groups, or if it was different. So you're going to work with 3 different sugars, and you're going to get data, and you are going to follow the same steps I have just did to plot the data, and then include a trend line on only the linear part of the data. So it should be clear to you as to why we are just considering or taking into consideration the linear portion of the data and including a trend line there. Okay, so after you are so you're going to do the same thing with the next 2 sugars, and you're going to end up with this line equation. You know the line equation, right? Y equals mx plus b. So here m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So after you include a trend line on the linear parts of these 2 sugar data too, you're going to do a t-test between all these 3. So you have, I guess you remember how to do a t-test depending on your from